All right, so I wanted to talk about something that's come out in the past few recent years. So the these girls are responding to modeling ads, and then when they get there, then they have to do porn, you know, and they're younger, they're younger women, you know, and so they're probably not reading the newspaper, they're probably reading a magazine that's about fashion or something like that, gossip, you know, and that's what I would think, and so just to think about it, just to really, I mean, you hear about this kind of stuff, but I don't think you really think about it very deeply, and it's just, or that we don't really think about it very deeply. I do because of all the stuff I've been through, but 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 so just to think about it for a second, so you know, the police show up, they call the police. And then when the police show up, then, they, the daughter's still pretty young, young. And then there's already all these alarms that have been raised because they tell them, they go, oh, well, would you be interested in doing porn? I don't even know why they tell them that. You know what I mean? Because they're basically telling them that, that they're not going to be able to get out of it. So I don't even know why they even throw it out. That would be a red flag in of itself, but should have been. But anyways, the point of the story is just, so they show up, and then it's, well, you're going to do porn. So what I'm saying is just, so the parents call the police, and then the police show up, and they tell them, they go, okay, well, she went, probably by the time you've caused alarm in somebody, then they're going to say something to somebody, right? So they probably went to their parents and said, well, this is kind of weird, they're saying strange things, or they told somebody, you know what I mean? And so, it's just, that's, in the art of war, it says you don't press a desperate enemy, you know what I mean? Because once you provoke desperation in somebody, they're going to do something, you know what I mean? And there's going to be a little bit of that in those women, that they're going to have told somebody that cares about them that they're not quite comfortable with something. And so, so they show up, and so they call the police, and they tell the police, well, she responded to this magazine ad, and she told us where she was going, and then she never came home, so then the police go, and they supposedly investigate, which, see, when I was in Los Angeles, when I brought up sex trafficking to these two police officers who showed up to investigate, there was an incident over there. It was just really confusing. It had to do with a whole bunch of complicated stuff. Way complicated stuff. But when I brought up at that point, I was under the impression that it was some kind of sex trafficking situation. And so then I mentioned that, and they just immediately left. You know what I mean? It was just so crazy. It was just so crazy. You know what I mean? Just the way that everything just instantly changed. Everything was different. Neither one of them seemed like they had an IQ above 100 points. I'll be honest with you on that. So it wasn't like the kind of thing you hold against them. It was just somebody had taught them that, you know what I mean? And they just, boom, they were gone. You know what I mean? And, cops aren't like, they want to talk to you. You know what I mean? They want to, oh, okay, so where were you at? And so where was, and so, and if you keep talking to them, they're going to they could find a way to fuck you. So it's just a good idea not to really talk to them. Just period. That's just the way it is, in life, dealing with any kind of power at all. Just in my research or whatever. But the point of the story is that you know, um, in my experience as well, just dealing with especially corrupt government is just the less you say is always better. But the point of the story is just for anybody, even myself. But the point of the story is that you know, they there was none of that. It was just like just gone, just like wow. It was almost like thank you. You know what I mean? Just that was refreshing. You just left. You know, it was like that never happens. You know, but not at the same time. It was extremely disturbing. It was, you know, it was it was alarming to me, and I was just like, this is getting deep. You know what I mean? But you know, it's just that in of itself. You know, just that there was so much going on. I didn't really focus on it for very long, to be honest with you. But it did occur to me just how strange it was. And but you know, either way, it just you know, it just to me, it just says that probably what ends up happening whenever these cops show up to investigate these sex trafficking claims, you know, about, you know, well, where's my fucking daughter at? We know exactly where she went. You know what I mean? And they probably tell him, okay, well, we'll look into it, and then they come back to him and they tell him, we don't know anything. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, just the way that I don't know, just it's just there's something that I think needs to be acknowledged about that, and you know, just to feel that what they feel in that moment, you know, is probably something, you know, akin to I don't know, just the deepest, darkest betrayal, you know, just to know that, you know, this person damn well knows, you know what I mean, how to find out what happened to my daughter. They responded to a magazine ad, you know what I mean, and you just fucking came to me and told me that you don't even fucking know where my fucking daughter's at. You can't go figure that out. You know what I mean? So it just, I don't know. It's I don't know. It just, it's hard for me to grasp that. You know what I mean? Because I could just feel the cops watching me right now, and even they just are thriving on some kind of notion of power because I said something. It's always like this. You know what I mean? But the point of the story is just the stuff I'm always picking up on. But the point of the story is just that you know, it's just I promise you they were seeing clowns and circus music when they fucking told them that. You know what I mean? Like something from your worst nightmare was going through their head. You know what I mean? Something dark. You know what I mean? Something like what the hell? Like just something so twisted. You know what I mean? Like this is going on. Like they're doing this just for me to see it. You know what I mean? Like they're doing this to my daughter so I'll see it. They're getting off on that. They're getting off on the open nature of that's so much of what they do. You know, with the little kids and, you know, and putting it on the pizza sign, you know what I mean? The symbol for child kidnapping and pedophilia and all this kind of stuff. You know, they need it to get off. You know, and it's just to be caught in the crosshairs of that. You know what I mean? For the parent. You know what I mean? At the systemic level of even police. You know what I mean? Coming to my house and telling me that, you know what I mean, that you can't even tell me, you're telling me a lie. You know what I mean? You're telling me a lie. You're in my life. I've paid tax dollars. Here you are lying to me, taking my daughter down this road. You know what I mean? So